Coming up next, what it takes to get a piercing done safely, the setup, the station, everything else that piercers do to ensure that you don't get an infection. So, stick around. Body Piercing Basics, number 13. Those that are new to the channel, in case you don't know who I am, my name is DaVo. I'm a professional body piercer and have been since 1994. I'm the owner and operator of the Axiom Body Piercing Studio here in Des Moines, Iowa. We're located inside Skin Kitchen Tattoo. So when I talk to you about this, I'm talking about this after having years and years of experience doing piercings, doing them safely, and protecting myself and those that are around me, including my clients and my fellow employees. So this coming up right now, we're going to do kind of the first in a series of videos I'm going to do, hopefully to educate you about what we do as professional piercers to ensure that the piercing does not become contaminated or infected during the piercing procedure. The steps that are taken not only for your safety as a client, but my safety and the safety of those around me. It's kind of broken down into 4 things that I like to call the shuns. The first shun is sterilization. The second one is sanitation. The third one is decontamination. And the fourth one is isolation. Today we're going to talk about, I'm going to kind of give you a tour of what's going on back over here in my piercing station and why it is set up the way that it is. In the future, I'm going to move more in depth into telling you how we do decontamination, how we do sterilization, talk a little bit more about isolation, a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to do today. Today is just kind of giving you an idea of how things should be set up and what you should look for. I do a disclaimer at the end, but I'm going to do one right now. This is in no way, shape, or form an educational video for you to go out and start piercing everybody you know, nor is it an education video to help you do piercings at home. I do not advise that. There's a lot of different reasons, including access to proper equipment, access to the chemicals that we use, the sterilization or sterilizer, everything that's involved in what I'm going to be talking about here in the future. It's expensive, and it's not something you're going to have laying around the house. So, don't go out and pierce your buddies, your friends, and etc. If you really have the desire to pierce, look into getting an apprenticeship and take it from there. And in the future, I'll probably do a video that will talk about how to go out and seek an apprenticeship. But until then, let's do a tour of the piercing station. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some basics of how we set up, why we're set up, my piercing area is set up the way that it is, to kind of give you an understanding of how we ensure or limit the possibility or risk of you obtaining something that you didn't come in here with. So that when you leave here, I haven't contaminated the wound, I haven't increased the likelihood of infection, and have done my best to ensure that you didn't catch anything and that the piercing is free of infection. Of course, we're going to go into the 4 things that I generally talk about when we're talking about cross-contamination, etc. And those are sanitation, sterilization, decontamination, and isolation or cross-contamination prevention. The shuns. First thing is, with the way that this is set up is, if you'll notice, there's cupboard area up here. That is full of jewelry that has been pre-sterilized in a hospital-grade autoclave that is tested on a regular basis. In this container is all the tools that I may need, also including needles, forceps, hemostats, anything I might use during the piercing process, taper pins, needles, I already said, and everything else that might be needed. So the key is that anything that's in this area needs to stay in that area and needs to avoid contact from one area to another. That's where this isolation part comes in. The sink, of course, is to clean my hands. Sharps container is a biohazard container that all needles go into, or anything that I feel is dangerous or may lead to infection or contaminate something else. Of course, everything below here that you can't see is considered a hot zone, including a container filled with a hard surface cleaner that all tools that are going to be reused are placed in to ensure that they're decontaminated, usually overnight, and then cleaned. And I'll probably get into that more in maybe a different video. When setting up for a piercing, here's how all this works. Anything that comes out of this area into this area is going to be considered clean and sterile. Anything that is in this area cannot be returned to this area because it may contaminate something. So we're isolating this areas in the surface because there are additional things that I may use. The idea is that with setup, which maybe if I explain that would be easier. First thing I'm going to do if I'm going to set up for a piercing is I'm going to wash my hands in that sink over there for 30 seconds, which equivalent to saying happy birthday to yourself or Mary had a little lamb or reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Once I've done that, I'm going to dry off my hands. Then I'm going to take a hard surface cleaner, which is this stuff, and I'm going to disinfect this mayo stand. This is what I'm going to be using for my setup. It's a removable tray that can be cleaned and sanitized. It creates a flat surface with a red edge around it in case anything starts rolling one way or another, and I can isolate things in it. Next thing I'm going to do, of course, after sanitizing this with a hard surface cleaner, is I'm going to lay down a dental bib or some type of drape for my setup. Then I'm going to start taking sterile packages like jewelry, tools, equipment out of these areas. Of course, I keep my surgical swabs there, gauze here, and I'm going to place it on here. Once I place everything on there, then I'm going to grab my gloves, I'm going to put those on, and then start opening the packages. Once the packages are all set up, I'm going to turn to my client, I'm going to disinfect the area, mark it, have them take a look at it, put them in a reclined position, then I'm going to change gloves, then I'm going to actually do the piercing. Once I've done the piercing, I've returned everything back to this tray, everything is taken off, considered contaminated, needles, sharp objects go into here, hot items go down into this garbage bag, which is considered contaminated. Tools that are reused are returned to that container of hard surface cleaner, where they sit overnight. Then they're removed, sanitized, disconnect, or in an ultrasonic tank. They're cleaned. Then they are repackaged and autoclaved again, and then stored. So it's a cycle. The idea is that sterile goes in, hot goes out. We don't want to take from here into here or here to here to avoid that any contaminants that are on this tray are going to return to that area. Part of that involves changing your gloves on a regular basis and washing your hands on a regular basis anytime that you touch the client. And then touch this. Anytime you go into this area, gloves need to be changed, hands need to be washed, etc. So that covers it. Let's kind of do a quick overview. So, isolation, as in sterile here, contaminated here, sterile here, to client, to not sterile, to contaminated, to hot, and then the process starts over again. I hope you've learned something. And in learning something, I'm not saying you should go out and try this yourself. I hope you learned something that when you go see a piercer and you're wondering whether or not they're safe or not, you can just simply watch them do a piercing and understand that they are safe or not safe. The other thing to take into consideration is if you are considering, which I do not advise doing this on yourself or your friends, consider the fact that you don't have one of these, you don't have a setup like this, you don't have access to biohazard containers, you don't know how to properly disinfect and reuse equipment, and you probably don't have an autoclave just sitting around the house. All of those things are needed to perform a piercing safely. So if you don't have them at home, don't do it. I know a lot of places will sell what is called piercing kits and everything comes sterile. Technically yes and no, that might be safe, but the reality is that that equipment should be disposed as medical waste immediately after you use it, and it should never be used on anyone ever again unless you can properly decontaminate it, clean it, re-sterilize it, and use it on the next person. If you don't have something to disinfect it, decontaminate it, and re-sterilize it, it's garbage. Get rid of it. Or go see a piercer and just have it done by somebody who's experienced, has the knowledge, and can help you through the healing process, educating you on the proper way to do it, and give you insight into your anatomy and what's going to work best for you as far as placement, jewelry, etc. Nothing replaces it. And when you look at the cost, usually we're only talking about $30, $40 one way or another. This piece of jewelry can be worn in your body. This piercing, you can have this piercing for the rest of your lifetime. It's a minor financial investment for something you can enjoy for the rest of your life. And if you try to do it yourself or let one of your buddies try to do it, chances are you are not going to enjoy the outcome. And you're just going to end up wasting time, money, and at worst possibly contract some type of infection, virus, or something that may impact the rest of your life. So kids, be safe. See a professional. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers it for this episode of Body Piercing Basics. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more body piercing education, tattoo related stuff in the future, please subscribe, hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when we post new videos. And if you don't hit it because it's just going to be annoying. Till next time, if you're in the Des Moines, Iowa area, I hope to see you for your body piercing needs in the future.